And we'll start Zoom. Good afternoon, everybody. I've put it in the chat box that we're going to be starting in a few minutes. We're just giving everybody a chance to get signed in to Zoom. We are broadcasting this live on Facebook as well. So, and Facebook does record it. And so you could have the availability to go back and rewatch if you want on Facebook as well. We'll start in about 2 minutes.
Oh.
I'm going to give it 1 more minute. Everybody has kids at home. They want to make sure they're muted. I don't blame you. Okay, I'm going to get started. People can continue to log in. My name is Carrie Woodcock. I'm the Executive Director for Maine Parent Federation. And today we are sharing with you some tools that you can use at home for positive behavior and interventions with your children. Courtney is going to be doing our presentation today, and I will hand it over to her. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box. I will be managing the chat box. Everybody's muted at this point in time, so we're doing chat box for questions. I'll be managing that chat box, and I will let Courtney know, and we'll get all your questions answered. We're recording this webinar, and it's also live on Facebook. Dylan Campbell, who you can see in this picture, works for us as well. He's going to be managing the Facebook live chat box. So if you are joining us on Facebook, if you have a question, please use that chat box as well. And with that, I will turn it over to Courtney.
Okay, thank you, Carrie. And hello, everyone. Welcome to this talk. We will be covering positive solutions for family. Just some strategies and tips I have put together and adapted from different resources to sort of help us through this, this pandemic. So again, my name is Courtney Angelosante. I am faculty at the University of Maine. I am also an external PBIS coach for multiple schools across the state. Also a BCBA, and so into this talk, we will be covering positive. Oh, there's some feedback there. But I'm a BCBA, so I am very, I'm feeling for some of our families right now who have a whole team of supports and now find themselves being homeschool teacher. And so I'm gonna just share some strategies and tips, and Carrie, I welcome you to just interject when you hear questions that you want me to respond to before I keep proceeding. So first, what I wanted to do is just send you all a great big virtual hug. I miss talking to many of the families, and we miss your kids, right, in schools. And this is hard. And so I think as we talk about all of these tips about how we can respond to our children in the ways that they're showing us they're stressed too, to remember that we're here to support you as you support your children. We're all sort of in this together, and we think about how are we doing remote or distance education? What does it look like? What's my role? What's your role? And how do we get through these days and not lose any of the momentum or the good learning that's happened. I want to share some practices that promote positive behavior. These are sort of tried and true strategies that we use in school to help with learning replacement behaviors for some of the tricky things our kids do, for helping them to cooperate now in terms of a family team that has to coexist and work alongside each other as we're working from home and helping our kids learn from home. And so I'll share some of that. We want to provide you with resources that I'll give you some examples, but I'll also try to help provide ways that you could adapt it or modify it to meet your family's needs. I want to reassure you that you know best about your children, that I'm going to share strategies again, but we know that our families have a really diverse set of needs. So what is working for one family might not work for the next. And so know that you're the expert. If something doesn't feel right, fit right, it's okay to take what you like and leave the rest. I also want to remind you we're in this together. We're really missing our kids, but teachers are still here, right? Our specialists and our support staff, we're still here. Oftentimes we are a video chat away or a phone call away, an email. And so even though we can't be face-to-face, we're still here to support you. So please reach out if you feel yourself stuck or in need of ideas. What I want to share is this idea of creating a matrix for home. Now, schools that are implementing PBIS or positive behavior interventions and supports, one of the things we find really important to be is super clear with what our expectations are, and then not to assume that we know what those mean, but to teach them. So there are some common values that exist in schools. It wouldn't surprise me to hear if a lot of you have children in schools that promote things like being respectful or being responsible or being safe. This is an example of a way that you could turn a matrix that your child might be accustomed to seeing at school into something relevant for home. So here you're going to see these guiding core principles or values: being respectful, responsible, and helpful. But now we can plug in your home routine or your new home routine these days. And that can be, you know, from the time we get up in the morning. We've got a lot of people getting ready for different Zoom meetings, or parents who have to work. And so what is going to be important for us to live in this shared space together in this new landscape of work and learn from home? There are some things now, like me as a mom, I am just sort of used to doing on the fly because it's quick and everybody's in a hurry. But now that we're all home, I'm sort of depending and leaning on my kids a little bit more to pick up some of the slack. And so instead of me just walking behind them all day, asking them to do this and to do that, I'm really outlining what is it that they own or they're responsible for, and then what are the things that I'll come in and support them around. So what I've done here is taking your school or your daily schedule and chunking it. This one shows a morning routine, what you might expect around meal times, around schoolwork. There's some little bullets in here that provide examples, but really this is up for you to make it your own and what's important for you to communicate with your family. So this is a family style matrix. Here's another example that has some times structured into it. And these core like this is for the Smith family. This is an example coming from Florida. And they've taken the core values and they incorporated a few others that were meaningful for their family, like to love and accept each other, or to be organized, because that's really important. I know myself, I have 6 children from 6 different schools. And so we have to really be organized and have a plan for the day. So, so think about doing this for your family, where you take, you know, you could ask your school if you don't know yet, what are your core values at your child's school, and carry those right into your home. Chances are your child will be really familiar with those if they're in a school that has positive behavior supports. I think also too, what I would like to mention in here is if there's a time in your day where maybe you have a work meeting, or maybe it's just kind of crazy and busy, even though you're all home together, and you want to embed some quiet times in the day, you could put quiet time in a special font or color or bold, right? And that way everyone knows during these windows of time, we're going to leave mom alone for a little bit, right? And have her have some quiet time, or dads too, that'd be okay. This is just another example here where if you have children with busy learning schedules right now, like some of my children do, you know, for example, my youngest has her first class at 9:30. She has another one at 11. She meets with her social worker at noon. She has science at 1, and she has math at 2. And so that's busy. Now, on other days, she might have her speech therapist call, and so that goes into the schedule. And for a child who might have some memory difficulties or organizational difficulties, outlining that will help you help them, so that you can stay on course and not skip one of those meetings. Along with that, you have an activity. It could very well be that an activity is done in 15 or 20 minutes. And so having some options that when you're done your activity and before your next one, that they can participate in, or they can engage in independently. And having those morning options sort of pre-approved eliminates the amount of times they have to say, can I do this? Or can I do that? And the idea of being pre-approved will help sort of eliminate the need for you to put limits or to argue or to negotiate midday when you might be in the throes of your own workday. So having conversations with your kids about these are the things that are okay to do, or these are the things that are okay to do when you get your work done, can be really helpful. So you can chunk those into morning options or afternoon options to kind of keep them fresh. I wanted to include a little bit about the idea of skill deficits, because this is something in my own house that can drive us a little crazy. I have this rule. I had it for a long time in classrooms as I would provide consultation. And now I have to remember this rule for myself as I am helping to navigate all things tricky on the home front. And this is how it goes. If you need to ask your child to do something, right? The first time you ask, you're providing a direction, right? This is what I need you to do. If you have to follow that up, that might be considered a reminder or a prompt, and that's okay too. If you have to ask a third time, we call it a nag, right? So first time's a direction, second time's a reminder, third time's a nag. So if you find yourself having to nag, right, by asking multiple times, I think it's worthwhile to zoom back out and consider what it is you're asking the child to do. And be sure to have that, that task filtered through these things. Is it a deficit? And if it is a deficit, consider what type. Sometimes we ask kids to do things that they just developmentally are not ready to do independently on their own yet. I would call that a skill deficit. A skill deficit would be something that you have never witnessed them do independently on their own without support yet, right? So if they like to play piano, or maybe they're learning their keys, they can do that, but they haven't yet been able to string those things together into a tune, right? Or the one that's really relevant in my home is to have, as I have a daughter, and her room can kind of get away from her. And so to clean her room when it gets kind of too far gone requires her to do a few things. It means she has to sort the things that are clean and dirty, and the things that are worth keeping versus the things that get tossed. She also has to organize them into groups. She has to plan where they go, and then she has to execute that plan. And for her right now in her development, this is not something that she can do sort of up to my criteria of being clean yet. It's not something she can do yet. And so when I think about helping her or assisting her, in this area, she really requires step-by-step help. First, I have to say, get all of your water bottles and your Gatorade. She's a Gatorade girl. And so I have to say, get all your water bottles and your Gatorade bottles and put those in recycling, right? That's the first step. The next step would be, let's get your dirty clothes off the floor and into the hamper, next step. And so I have to sort of walk her through step by step if I want her to do a good job. If I don't do that, chances are she's going to spin in circles in her room and not make much headway, or she might try to cheat and get things sort of stuffed under the bed, right? Because she wants to do a good job. She's just really not there yet. Another way you can consider it is to ask yourself if it might be a performance deficit. And here they've demonstrated the skill before. They have been able to complete the task, but it's still emerging. And when I say that, I mean it's not independent all the time. Maybe some days they can do it, but some days they can't. And it's just not consistent yet. In those situations, it can be really helpful just to provide a model. Remember, this is what it looks like. You can help them, get them started and show them an example, and then let them try on their own and then give them some feedback on how it went. I think about this with the dishwasher. I have some of my kiddos who can rinse dishes and put them in the dishwasher. I've seen them do that before. But when I go to add a dish to a semi-loaded dishwasher, I'll find some dishes still are caked on with food, and I know when the cycle goes through, they're not going to get clean, right? So I've seen them do that, but they haven't quite got down the concept, and they still need some feedback and a little bit of support there. A fluency deficit, they can do it, and pretty much they can do it regularly, but maybe they're not doing it to the same level as maybe a sibling, or as quick as you'd like them to do. I think about my little one getting up in the morning and getting her teeth brushed and her hair brushed and getting dressed and taking her medication and getting her breakfast. I kind of feel like she's on slow motion. And so if I just hold back and I have some patience with her and maybe give her a direction or two, she is showing really great signs of getting those things on her list done. It's just not quite at the speed I'd like it. So I'm trying to bite my tongue and giving her a little patience. And then when she finishes, I'll say, you know what? You just did everything on your list, and I hardly had to give you any help. So I'm still reinforcing the fact that she was able to get through her list, but it is requiring me to have some patience and remember that 1, 2, 3 logic. Once is a direction, twice is a reminder. If I have to stay on her, it can turn into a nag, and that's really not fun for anyone. So just to remember your level of support and consider skill, performance, or fluency deficit. The next tip I want to talk about is teaching new behaviors. Now, I know hand washing is not a new behavior, but it certainly has become something we really don't want to get wrong, especially in this pandemic where this virus is so dangerous for us. So thinking about hand washing, it's important to remember all of the steps, right? When we're hearing this too on the news, we've got to get between our fingers, we've got to get our thumbs. And so making sure that we are covering how important those things are. Also about giving space. If you have little ones and some without, potentially with some social deficits, we are going to go into public now in a different way. And so what I think can be helpful is to provide all of this information if you have to go into public, if you have to get to the doctors, if you have to go out, to give this information and opportunities to practice before you get in the car, right? So if not, what could end up happening is you're going to wait for a behavioral error and then you're going to have to correct it. So instead, provide the things that the new behaviors that we are having to teach and communicate, giving that an opportunity to be taught, practice, communicated about. Talk to them about COVID. There's some great resources on the Maine Department of Ed website about how to talk to your kids about COVID-19. It's okay to have those conversations. and to teach the new behaviors that go along with that information, rather than putting them in an environment where they're likely to make those errors and then have to be corrected for them. In addition, thinking about stating your expectations in advance. And again, this can go right along with giving people space when you're talking about greeting people and how you can do that safely. It's also about your expectations around things like technology. There's a lot of mixed messages going on in my own home around there used to be a lot of parameters around technology, but now they need them, right, to engage in their school day. So before they could have their iPad or their iPod when and during specific times, and now they're really needing to access that throughout the day. One thing that I know of one of my children is she really requires a heads up of how much time she has on a device, or how much time she has left of a TV show before she needs to begin to transition and get ready for her next online learning experience. And so giving a countdown can be helpful. We've got those kind of all over our house. In terms of if we're in the kitchen, we've got a timer. But these kind of countdowns can be quite helpful in giving them notice. The other part I think is helpful too is we have a lot of parents who are working at home and are working online, like I am right now, and there's a really great chance, but the time we're through talking today, we will be interrupted by one of my own children or by one of my dogs. But maybe we'll get lucky. But having a note on your door, right? It says mom or dad is in a meeting and these are the times. So please don't knock and do not enter. Or a stop sign, some way to signal this is not available to you right now. I know I've heard of some of the families that I work with that their kids are sort of grazing in the kitchen all day long. And so we talked about putting a stop sign on the fridge. The fridge is unavailable right now, and using that as a visual support. Now, if a child goes up to the fridge, they see this, they might not like it, but it's a pretty clear signal and it eliminates the amount of times they have to come to you and say, can I have another snack or a cheese stick or ice cream or whatever it is that they're asking for. And instead have designated times or have designated baskets. I've seen too with kids can have their snacks in there. So thinking about stating your expectations before you go into your meeting, or anticipating the things that your children will ask for, and creating those opportunities to be really clear with what your answer would be before they even ask. Now this one, tip 4, we're talking about offering limited or reasonable choices. And so most children are not born with the ability to make decisions and then deal with the repercussions of those decisions. It's something that we learn, and it's best when that's accompanied with a lot of support and practice. So we want to empower our kids, right? We want them to make responsible choices. But we also don't want to give the option to opt out, right? So would you help me with dinner? Kind of lends itself to no, right? So another way to phrase that would be, I want help with dinner. You can help me this way or that way. Do you want to make a salad or do you want to help with the dishes? Or it's time for schoolwork. It's not, do you want to do your schoolwork? Which also lends itself to no, right? Instead, it could be, do you want to start with your journal or with your history project? So you're assuming that they are going to get started, but now they have some control over how they get started. Or we need to get some fresh air, which is a current battle in my house. So we're getting outside, guys. Would you like to ride your bikes or do you want to take a walk on the trails? But stating it in a way that says, this is happening, right? I've made the decision, this is happening. I made that decision for you, but now you have some control over how we do that. So in each example, those things are not optional, but they're allowed to execute those decisions and exert some control. Okay, now the next one, I'm going to just move the next one is using a first then, or sometimes referred to as a when then. But a first then statement, actually has a name, it's called Premack Principle. And it's a statement, a simple instruction that tells your child what he or she must do in order to earn a desired consequence. Or it's also referred to as a contingency statement. So when you use a contingency statement, you want to be sure that you give it a positive focus. And you're clear, right? This isn't up for negotiation. You have to do this, and then this can happen. You set a reasonable time limit, you follow through, and you also have to be prepared that the student might not make it. And then that's okay, you'll get through it. So in the example up in the corner, it's first, we're gonna do our work, and then it's time to play. There's a blank template there too, so you can plug just about anything that your student has for schoolwork or for a household chore. You're gonna feed the cat, right? And then they can enjoy the things that they want to do. An example I put here, it's a rainy day, right? We have a little bit more flexibility now, don't we? So if your child wants to sleep in a little bit, maybe you extend that to them a little longer than normal. She gets up and asks to play the PS4 or the PlayStation or whatever, insert whatever video game. And so it's okay to say things like, we will be stuck inside today, so I think that's gonna be okay, right? So they hear yes. And then comes, first, you've got to do your morning chores and finish your math lesson, but then you can play on it until the afternoon lesson, right? So when they ask, you could really approach this two ways. You could say, no, you have all of these things to do, right? And close the door. Or you can say, yes, first, you've got to get these things done, then you may do that. So the child hears yes, and that the tasks that are required before he or she can access, they seem doable and they're achievable. Again, right, these things that we're going to ask them to do are things that they can do probably with a reasonable effort. They can do them independently, or you're ready to provide the support that they need to achieve it. So you could do this, it depends on the age and development of your child. If you need to use pictures, that's okay. You can also write a list and just do check boxes. This tends to work well for my kids who are in their tweens, is I would just kind of write a little list of things they need to do, and then they can check or scratch them out. And then comes this tip 6, which I think is probably, I put it sort of nestled right in the middle here of these slides, but I think one of the most important things, especially right now, is catch your child being good. Right? Even in when I'm working in schools, some of my really naughty ones, right, that make a lot of errors and they're still learning, they get a lot right. And they get it right a lot of the time. And they bring a lot of sort of spirit and magic to the school day. So what we want to do is make sure that we embrace that, especially during this time. So it's okay to do these things. Give them a hug, even on a tough day. Leave a surprise note or a drawing. You can read a book together. I saw a meme the other day, scrolling on social media, and it was from an educational colleague of mine, and it said, I know you're busy right now, but step away from your work, grab a book and a blanket, and go snuggle with your kids. And I almost needed that as permission, right, to take a break and remember that although it's really scary right now with this pandemic, it's also offered us an opportunity to steal away these moments with them. And just to say, I see you, I appreciate you, and to do something positive together. And to go outside, play, dance, appreciate one another. Let them stay up late one night and let them sleep in a little bit the next morning. Now this magic ratio of 5 to 1, if you haven't heard of it yet, This is referring to, we want to have interactions with each other, with our children, with our colleagues that are 5 times more positive than negative. And this becomes important because if you have a child that has challenging behaviors and challenges your patients on a daily basis, it can be easy to fall into the trap of commenting or providing corrections way more frequently than we dole out the positives. So this isn't to say that corrections aren't important or feedback isn't appropriate. It is. But we want to make sure that if we counted up all our interactions with our children a day, that they would sort of fall down in this ratio. They would be 5 times more positive than they are negative. So again, you know, thinking about my own children, right? I have some that make a fair amount of behavioral errors more than the other children. And so I have to really be on my A game to look for the things that she gets right and to be ready and poised to catch her doing what she's supposed to do. And that can feel a little against the grain, because when she's being good and quiet would be the time to leave her alone and get some work done. But it just takes a moment to say, I see you and I really appreciate you getting your stuff done, right? Just a small comment. It helps to balance out that ratio. So other starters for getting in the good stuff with our kids is for giving positive feedback. Tell them what they did well, and tell them that you feel proud of them, especially if it's one of those emerging skills, right? They're maybe a fluency or performance deficit, and you see them start to show a little bit more speed or a little bit more autonomy over things. Tell them exactly what you see that you liked. I unloaded the dishwasher, for example, the other day, and my little one got it right. The dishes came out clean. And so just have a little comment like, wow, you did a really good job the other night doing that. You know, I really appreciate that. That helps make my day go smoother. Things like that can be very, very powerful. Other ways that you can make your acknowledgement to your children a little bit more formal is to break down skills into discrete little chunks that then you can provide feedback around. So there's a couple of examples here. This one is a little fuzzy here in the middle. It's a cat. And you might have a pet at home that it's your child's job to feed the cat or to take out the dog. And each time they do that, they can color in or circle a component on a chart, right? And then when they fill it all in, they might have some kind of a reward from home, or extra TV time or computer time or something that might be meaningful to them. So you can really break down just about any task in that way, and turn it into a reward system. For older kids, there can be sort of these economies where they have chores or expectations, and then they earn things. They can take those tokens and cash them in for things that they value. And so there's an example over here. Other kids who don't have the capacity to save up yet, they're much more immediate in their behaviors. You might break down what you want them to do, and as they finish a task, as in this token board over here, they receive a token, and then when they finish their 3 jobs, they can earn something that they want to work for. There's lots of examples of these kinds of things, from chore charts to behavior charts at PBIS World, and I put that link there. Some tips to keep in mind: you want to provide praise is good. You did a good job. That's okay to say. But turning it a little bit more specific can make a big difference. So I like how you took care of your learning materials. That showed responsibility, right? Is turning it from a general statement into something more specific. And then be consistent We have drift, right? We set up all of these great ideas that we have, and then we forget to be consistent with them. So pick a few things that would make a really big difference for your family, and then post it or communicate it clearly in your matrix for your family or your routines. And if they make an error, it's okay. Review it with them, and then feel free to try it again next time. You want to be careful not to set your goals so high that your child won't meet it consistently, right? So think about what they can do most of the time on their own. You want to provide feedback in a timely manner, and share what you're doing with your child's team or their teacher or their at your family practice. And then when you get stuck, ask for help, right? Make sure that you keep asking for help. We're still here. For tip 7, I want you to take care of yourself, right? I want us to remember that this is really hard. And so we have to teach ourselves sometimes new strategies. If we were at work, we could go back to our office or retreat for a minute, right? Get ourselves calm. But we are home and there seems like there's no way to get out. And so thinking about steps to help get ourselves calm, to get ourselves centered. And that really, it takes a lot of self-awareness to know what our triggers are when we're feeling like we're getting heated, which happens, and then have a plan. So you want to build up sort of that toolbox or have a way to communicate to your child, I am in the red zone right now, or I am in the yellow zone. And I'll talk more about that in a minute. And that indicates to your family that, okay, mom needs a break right now, and that's okay. So remember, take care of yourself. Let's ditch this idea that we have to be perfect, right? It's okay to have a moment and not be the best parent all the time. This is really hard stuff. I found myself too, being someone who does not typically struggle with anxiety or depression, really struggling with the news to the point where I've had to shut off the news and cope with my own stress level so that I can be a better parent for my kids. And also, we've had to do a lot of translating things that we're seeing from our kids that maybe didn't exist a month ago, and realize it could really be related to their own stress level because they're home. One of my daughters said to me, I'm just really stressed. And I thought about, you're home. Our crazy schedules are gone. There's no basketball and this club and that club and homework. Like, we're home. We can stay in our PJs. So, what is she so stressed about? But I think what she's experiencing are things like social isolation, and her routine has been upset. And she's, not meeting with her teachers, and she's got a lot of worry and things going on related to the pandemic, as I do. So the things that we might be seeing could very well be directly correlated to the things happening in our society right now. So remember, this is hard. This is really hard, and that you are not alone. Look for the good though, because it's there, right? We have opportunities to be with our kids in ways that maybe we would not have. Reach out for help. Please take care of yourself. And then this one is something that, again, I'm a parent here too, learning to do this all remotely and finding that neutral time. So there's a lot of good, but there's a lot of living together as a large family where there's difficult situations that are arising, and there's hard feelings, strong feelings. And instead of responding when you're at that high emotional state, remembering it's okay to take time. Sometimes it doesn't take a lot of time. Even 5-10 minutes can really make all of the difference in how you sit down and communicate with your child. So wait for a good time to debrief or to address a problem behavior. Does not mean the same thing as ignoring it. So when emotions are high and we often can't access those regions of our brain responsible for logic, planning, perspective taking, for you and your child certainly can't do that either. Wait for time when both the parent and the child are in a good place. or in the green zone, right? If you are familiar with the zones of regulation, to plan for more effective problem solving. Speaking of the zones, many schools are using this curriculum. If you're not familiar with it, you can find out all kinds of information on it by going to their website. The premise here is that if you're in the green zone, you're sort of good to go. You're ready to learn. You're in a good place, in a good mood. But there's other zones too that are correlated with emotions. Things like being frustrated or worried might mean you might be in the yellow zone. If you're angry, or if you're yelling or really feeling out of control, maybe you're in the red zone. And if you're sleepy or just feeling kind of blue, you could be in the blue zone. So I like the color coding of this. It doesn't correlate to good or bad. They're just emotions. But for real concrete learners, this can be a good way to communicate as a family, right? I'm feeling in the yellow zone right now. I'm gonna go take a 5-minute break with my book and see if I can get myself to the green, and then we'll have that conversation about that hard thing. And so if you can think about establishing some way to kind of communicate your stress level, or giving your child tools to communicate about their stress level, it helps one another know how to either support or give space. Also, if your school has used the zones of regulation, reach out to your school. They may be up for having a distance learning around some of these lessons, which is happening in some areas. Similar to the zones of regulation, some schools use the incredible 5-point scale. If you have not used this before, it can be really helpful. If a student is being asked to work independently on a project or an assignment, having this scale available, and when you see signs of frustration, you could say, well, where are you, right? For me, with some students, a 5 would be, it's time to close the book and put this away right now. And that's okay, right? This is clearly something we need to get more information on, and we need to revisit when we're more in the green zone, or we have we're in more of that neutral territory. And a 1 means this work is fine to do independently, or maybe we need to step it up a little bit, right, in terms of instructional match for learning. At a 3 could be an area where I can do it, but I might need a little help. So if you think about using an incredible 5-point scale for work, that can be helpful, but it's also used to communicate how someone could feel. So there's really no limit to how you can use this. But here, right, 1 is feeling a little blue, 2 is good, 5, I'm starting to feel out of control. This is what it would look like. And here are some things that I can do to get myself into a better place. So incredible 5-point scale, you're going to see here at the end of the slides, I have linked some resources and some links there so you can find out more. I wanted to include Second Step. It's a common social skills curriculum. Many schools are using this too. They have a lot of great online resources right now that may be using the same language that your child is accustomed to hearing in their classrooms. For example, there are free lessons and resources for families right now. One of them is a Mind Yeti. I don't know if you've heard of this, but it's super cute. It sort of hits the nail on the head in terms of really good strategies for mindfulness, for helping students to get centered, more regulated, and they're really cute, fun to listen to, something that your whole family might enjoy. But there's a ton of resources here, so I wanted to include that too if you're interested in learning more. And then at the end here, I've put some resource links if you want to find out specifically to get connected with any of the things that I've chatted about. So I think at this point, I'll just turn to Carrie to see if there's any questions from the group.
No questions that have popped up, Courtney. Everybody's saying that the information is really needed right now and very well done, and loving the presentation. I did send out the presentation via email prior to, I think I sent it out this morning. So you should have the PDF format with the resource links. But if you do not have it, please feel free to email me. I did put my email up in the chat box. I'll put it back up again. I will send it out to you. We are, because we're a nonprofit, we do look to collect some results as far as polling is concerned. So if you could just take a few minutes at right now, I just popped up a poll. If you could answer these quick 8 questions for us and provide us with some feedback on the presentation, that would be great. We'll hang out for a couple minutes, let you finish that. And if there are any other questions that you may have, please feel free to put them in the chat box. Courtney, do you mind hanging out for a couple minutes just to see if anything pops up?
That sounds great.
Great. Oh, wait, I've got 2 here in the question. Wonderful, thank you. Thank you, this was great. Just good affirmation right now. I liked the idea of the snack basket personally. I think that's going to be very useful in our household. And we do use the zone of regulations in our household as well. I will make sure that, oh, the polls, hold on. For some reason, the poll's not popping up. I don't know. Let me end it and see if I can relaunch it. This happened to us yesterday too.
This happened to me yesterday as well.
Yeah. Let me relaunch. Sometimes if I end and relaunch, it'll pop back up. If it doesn't, anybody, I just tried popping back up. If we can't see it, we can send it out via email. Oh, it's up. Great. Thank you, you guys. If you don't mind taking a few minutes to fill that out, that would be great. The zone of regulations we do at home as well, and we have it laminated and it sits right next to the computer at home on the table. So that when we can, when we start to feel that shift, we definitely put her towards that and help her to help identify how she's feeling and if we need to move on from the activity. I do have a question. Is it recommended to send home a zone regulation to kiddos from school? So actually we got ours from school. That's where we started, but I'll let Courtney answer that question.
Yes. Yeah. And so actually I'm part of a movement here where do a lot of consultation to self-contained classrooms or with students who I think could benefit from zones. And I've really moved my guidance and my direction into, you know, if we teach this in isolation, and we don't ever share this with the human beings that the student's going to be in contact with, we've given them a language that they can't use with other people. And so, yes, I think that it should be in classrooms, and I think we should be sending what we do in classrooms home, that the more consistently we use language with, the better. I've also had experiences with little ones and some older ones where we're doing really great things in school, and then they go home and they might have case management or a BHP, and they're doing really great things at home and never do those 2 parties speak, right? And so think, if you're the child, you have to learn this system at school, and maybe this system in my special ed classroom, this system in my general ed classroom, and then this system at home. That's really tricky. So I'm a huge advocate for one system. Let's get our teams together and have a cohesive, comprehensive, clear communication system, one system, right, that would work to the extent possible. So that's where I'm saying, ask your schools and get the visuals, have them have a short conversation with you with, this is how we use it at school, and this is how I saw your child using it at school, and here's some recommendations for home, and then vice versa. Share with your schools how your child's been successful or how your family uses it at home. That bi-directional conversation is really important.
That's great. Yeah, we use that zone of regulation for Sammy at school, at home, and with her outside therapist. So we try to use it across all service models. So I am a children's service coordinator. I was wondering if I can use some of this information with my families. As far as Maine Parent Federation is concerned, absolutely, that's what the point is. And I think Courtney would probably agree. I'll let her answer though.
Absolutely. Yep. Take it, use it.
And let me see. It is, got a few new messages at the bottom. Let me just go through. Great idea to have teachers provide training to parents online for ZOR, etc. We have sent home zone information over the last few years to all elementary students by a guidance counselor and use it school-wide. And that's the great thing about what Courtney does. Her PBIS model is used school-wide in a lot of different districts, and it works for every kiddo, not just kids with special needs. You answered that one. Courtney, I'm also BCA. I want to compliment you on your family-friendly presentation that duly met the standards of our field. Well done. There are so many kiddos we support that would use zones of regulation. I've been looking for a great resource. Thank you. I work with a 5th grader who is struggling at home. I check in with mom and him. He struggles connecting with her this way and uses it at school. Perfect. I will do exactly that next week. Sorry, I have to scroll down. I completely understand what you were saying and agree. Thank you. This is in fact fantastic information. Thank you. Just a whole lot of thank you. Thanks so much. Thanks for including all the resources and websites. We use Second Step at our site too. I think I got them all. And I did see the email address for requesting me to email you the PowerPoint, and I will do that in just a few minutes. Resources are amazing. Thank you. Awesome. Courtney, I know you, I grabbed Courtney before we were in a meeting together, and she's like, I'm really not that busy because she coaches in school districts. So when schools close those first couple of weeks, she's like, I have a lot of time on my hands. So I grabbed her and scheduled her that week, and now she's like out straight. So I'm so happy that you were able to join us, and thank you so much for your time. I'm kind of like a kid in a candy shop listening to you talk because I can relate personally and professionally with the messages, and I just think you do a wonderful job. So thank you so much for spending the time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I mean it when I say I wish I could give you all a hug. I miss seeing kids, and I'm really feeling socially isolated myself. So having this opportunity to talk with people who love the work that I do and who I love is really rewarding.
Well, I think, hi, Carrie, can you email me the resources? Thanks, Ann. Oh, that's Ann. She works for me. Yes, Ann, I will email you the resources. Is there any suggestions before you leave? Wait, lots of laughs. In other words, any last minute suggestions before Courtney heads out? I know it's just, I tell all my parents to be kind to yourselves. And I think the message that Courtney said that sometimes as parents, we don't oftentimes listen to enough is to take care of yourself. Because if you're not, then you're not taking care of anybody else in your family, especially your kids with special needs. So every day now, I used to get up early in the morning before work and go for a run. I save it till noon where Sammy is taking her lunch break. And I go out, and today it was pouring rain. I was like, I'm going. So that's my 40 minutes to myself. And even if I don't want to run and I'm just walking, I get out of the house and I have that time to myself. And that's the way I take care of myself. And so really, please be patient with yourselves. This is the first time any of us have ever done anything like this ever before. So take care of yourselves, be patient with your teachers. I think MDOE is doing a really, really good job right now. They're the one agency I think that's doing the best job right now. But please, if you're having issues, contact Maine Parent Federation. We'll be happy to answer your questions. Do you have any last words, Courtney?
No, I think that I would just sort of echo what you said. Take care of yourself. Take a nap when you can, right? Do some of the things that we can now do that we couldn't do when we were sort of out straight, going here, going there, going to therapy, picking up, dropping off. The other thing too is, we really scratched the surface with ideas. And so if you are struggling with a particular issue or a challenge right now, do not sit with it. There are people who can help. So it might require a phone call and another one until you find someone that will listen with support that's going to be meaningful for your family. But keep trying. Please don't sit and feel overwhelmed and socially isolated yourself, because there is help. It's sometimes a phone call or 4 away, but be persistent, and we'll get this figured out.
Somebody's begging you to come to Aroostook County. I know, if I could have Courtney move into my house. And I actually find sometimes your recommendations are more helpful for my 15-year-old than they are for my child with Down syndrome. But that's the great thing, is you can apply all your methods to all your children in your home, and especially to the situation right now. So I think we have, oh, I am not a parent, I'm an ed tech and want to do all that I can. It was easy. It was always so easy to work with the kiddos one-on-one and in person. Connecting with these kiddos and getting on the same page as them is my struggle right now from a distance. And I would say, yes, we're hearing that from a lot of teachers. We're hearing that from a lot of parents. And I know the one message that Maine DOE is trying to give out is, in whatever shape or form you can connect with your kiddos, do so. Sammy has a pen pal. One of her teacher's daughters is relatively the same age, and she brought her to school one day, and so all of a sudden a note showed up at our house from her daughter asking if Sammy would be a pen pal with her. And that has, like, she looks forward to checking the mail every day now to see if her pen pal wrote back. So little things of that nature. If you're able to you know, virtual learning is hard. If you're not able to connect with them virtually, if you pick up the phone and have a phone call with them, all those little things, just connecting with your students in that way, shape, or form, or dropping a letter in the mail, if that's the only way you can do it, because it brightens up these kids' days. And I'm telling you, we're getting lots of feedback from parents that teachers are doing wonderful, wonderful things. So any way you can connect, that would be great. Too bad I can't use this stuff on my husband.
I think you can.
Yeah. And then just a last thank you. Are there any other, before we wrap up and let Courtney get back to her family? I didn't know you had 6 kids. Like, I bow down to you. I think that's it, Courtney. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll keep the poll open for a few more minutes. Dylan and I will hang around if you want to enter your email address. Thank you so much for your time, Courtney, and I'm sure you and I will be talking soon, but I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, thanks.
Have a good night. All right, Shannon at Living Innovations. Thank you. Thanks again. Thank you. You're welcome, everybody. I'm just going to hang out. If anybody wants to pop an email address into the chat box, I'll hang out for a few more minutes. And I'm sending out those emails tonight. I got you, Shannon, or Teresa. I'm sorry, Teresa, I see you, and I did send it out just a few minutes ago. I see you, Karen, and I will send that out. I see you, Kimberly. Okay, I think I got everybody's email. If anybody's left on and they don't have the presentation, please email me at cwoodcock@mpf.org. At this point, I'm going to end the webinar. Thank you, Dylan, for hanging out. And let me just make sure there's nothing in the question. Okay. Oh, Brandy, I got Brandy's email as well. Okay, I think I got everybody's email. If anybody's left on. All right, thank you so much. Everybody have a good night.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Carrie.